a local area network, right, or LAN, which is mainly a localized network. For example, the access network we have here, right? We also have something called a WAN, or wide area network, and this is mainly different scales. So as the scale increase, or حجم network, يعني scale or حجم, right? So what's the importance of these networks, right? I mean, we use them every day, whether socially or through devices or hardware, right? It facilitates communication, right, or data sharing, so we can exchange information. Similarly for internet connectivity, right, connecting people to different people across the world. And it supports business operations, so for businesses, e-commerce, and many other applications, right? So this is just an example. The figure on the right is just an example of a small-scale network that has a LAN, 3 different LANs, or 3 different local area networks, right? And each device is ID'd or identified using a unique number, let's say, right? And we'll go into what that number is and how we can create it, right? And any kind of device, any, I guess, LAN can have different topologies, right? So a topology is basically a way of interconnecting the devices together, right? So let me actually go through some. So before I go into the topologies and protocols that networks use, and this is just the basic theory, we have to go through a way of systematically modeling this kind of network. Okay, so people throughout history they designed a model called the OSI model, or Open Systems Interconnection Model, right? And it's a layered architecture, right? So it's a layered model. That's modular, right? So you can swap things in and out, and you can modify a layer without affecting other layers, for example, right? So it's similar to object-oriented programming, if you've seen it, right? So you have different classes, and these classes can communicate through interfaces, right? Same idea here, right? So typically for the OSI model, we have 7 layers, right? And you can see them on the right side figure in the top, as well as at the bottom, actually. So it goes from application layer all the way down to the physical layer, right? So in today's, I guess, workshop, we're going to mainly focus on, well, application, obviously, since we're going to use that, and the network layer, essentially, right? So from the sender to the receiver, the way this works is you take the payload or the content of the data, and then you call something called encapsulation. So encapsulate or encode the data at each layer, right? So each layer you add a header and trailer, essentially, to the data itself, so that you can then identify that data, essentially, right? So each building block, at each layer, you can see there's an additional block to each the data itself. So that's called the header, right? And then when the receiver receives it down at the physical layer, he decapsulates it. He does the opposite, right? He removes that specific header and then identifies to who this data belongs to, right? Because don't forget, in the receiver side, you can have many applications open, right? And typically, the way this works is there's a server and client model. We're going to talk about that more, and we're going to build it. The server has specific ports, right? A way of identifying what application is connected to who, right? So that we can essentially send that information to the right receiver, right? And in the real world, though, we don't use all 7 layers. Sometimes we kind of simplify it, right? And the simplification is called the TCP/IP model. So what is TCP? TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol. So it's a transmit layer protocol that people use to send data end to end. So between a sender and receiver, and there could be intermediate nodes in between, right? And the IP, obviously, the internet protocol, which is pretty much the standard now, right? So some hardware that you may see, right? Networking hardware, routers. So what are routers? Routers are essentially hardware devices that route and forward traffic, right? So they act as, so basically they encapsulate or decapsulate the data that you send up to the network layer, right? So the transport and above, so you see these layers, the transport layer and above is usually decapsulated at the end end-to-end. So at the sender or receiver PC or device, right? The network layer usually is used by the network itself. That's why it's called the network layer. And the routers essentially use this information to route the traffic to the correct port, right? Or link, egress port, right? Switches does the same thing, but that's done locally instead of, between global networks, right? And modems are something that now you don't see anymore because it's integrated inside the router itself. So the router has a modem inside. And the modem, all it does, it modulates and demodulates the signal, right? Don't worry about that too much though. But these are the typical hardware devices that you see within a network, right? So the protocols. So, similar to social interactions, how do computers talk to each other? They use something called protocol. So for example, if you go to your boss and want to talk to him, you knock the door, right? And you go in and you say, Assalamu alaikum. This is how you start, right? That's the protocol that we use. Similar, a PC or a device has a specific protocol that they can exchange between a sender and receiver so that they can talk to each other, right? Basically build a link or build a channel that they can talk to each other. So some of these protocols are HTTP, which you've seen a lot. Most websites, in some form or another use HTTP, right? FTP is for file transfer protocols, so when you send a file, right? DNS is something that probably everybody uses, right? Because it's used to basically convert an address or ID of the host, like a website, for example, to a number that's identifiable by the PC. Obviously, we humans can't memorize all numbers, so we use the host name. For example, google.com, right? That's a host name. So usually the device don't see google.com, they see a specific number, right? So this DNS is basically a protocol that's used to exchange these numbers, right? Or convert basically the numbers. So setting up a network. So essentially when you want to start a network, obviously you have to connect your device to that interconnection of networks, right? And to connect it, you need to have a specific ID, right? And that ID is basically called an IP address or Internet Protocol address, right? We'll see, once you go into the coding part, you'll see examples of it. And we have to assign this to the device, right? And it has to be unique, obviously, right? So subnetting masks and gateways, these are basically, a gateway is basically a gateway, a door to between your network and the outside network, essentially, right? That's the gateway, right? And a subnet is basically a way of dividing the network up into chunks, right? Again, we won't really deal with it too much. We'll let the PC basically do that for us. For now, we're gonna just build a network ourselves, essentially, right? Using libraries, obviously. So there's common network commands. Probably you've seen them or maybe not. So ping is one of them, right? So if you open your command prompt or PowerShell on Windows or terminal on Mac or Linux, you can type ping, the command, and then some website, right? And you can ping that website. Basically, you send something called an ICMP protocol or Internet Control Messaging Protocol that you send, and you receive back a response. And this is used to basically check if that website is up or down, or the link is up or down, essentially, right? So it's for testing connectivity, basically. So ipconfig or ifconfig for Linux is usually used to basically check your current device's network interfaces. So in the device, you can have many interfaces, right? You can have Wi-Fi, that's an interface, right? You can have Ethernet, that's another interface, and probably have more than one. You can have more than one Wi-Fi module or dongle, right? So you can use this to display these network interfaces, essentially, in your device. Traceroute is another famous one that people use, and it's basically, don't forget the routing or the way the network is designed is you can connect between one device and another through a series of intermediate nodes, right? So to check how many hops, we call them hops, between one node and another, use traceroute, right? So you can trace a path, essentially, between the source and destination, right? So enough of the theory. I don't want to go too deep on the theory, just basics. So today I want to talk about mainly socket programming, or really interfacing, basically, with the kernel of the operating system to tell it to communicate or open a port, an IP address, assign an IP address and port, and then connect to a different device. Or mainly for our testing purposes, it's going to be the same device, but we're going to go down the layer, the OSI layer or TCP IP layer, go down, and then go straight up. We're not going to connect to another PC. We're going to connect to the same PC, the same host, but different port numbers, right? So the way these machines talk to each other is they use a tuple. And a tuple is usually the source and destination address, right? Some number, and then a port and destination, source and destination port, right? Another number, essentially. So this gives you a better way of making sure who to talk to, if you have multiple devices connected. So this is what we're gonna do today. Is basically we're gonna build these. We're gonna use the sockets in Python usually, right? You can use any language you want, but we're gonna do this in Python. And we're gonna basically build a client-server application. So a server is mainly an application that listens to a specific IP address and port, using a specific IP address and port, and you're gonna have a client that connects to it, right? And it's a very simple application we're gonna talk about right now. You can follow along with me, basically, and you can see the code. So I already wrote the code, basically. We're gonna follow along with it. Basically, by the end of it, we're gonna use some exercises. We're gonna build this simple chat application or a group chat application, right? And we're gonna also use something called a port scanner. So why is this important? Why is a port scanner important? Is because we're gonna essentially make sure the PC doesn't have open ports that people can abuse. This is more so towards network security, really, right? And obviously, we're going to use sockets to send and receive messages. So I think I have this here. 1 second, let me check. ايوه انا محمد راح 1 second. Okay. If you have VS Code, you can open VS Code and follow along. Okay, I'll just change PCs, this one. Okay, this is better. So some basic information that I want to go over. I don't know if you can see this, but let me zoom in. All right. So we're going to use the socket library in Python, and there's some key methods that you want to be aware of, right, and use. We'll see some examples of how to use them. So bind. So that's a method basically on the server side that is used to bind to a specific IP and port, essentially, right? So that server has to have the same IP address, right? And it has to keep listening for incoming connections from clients, right? So listen is another method that you can use. Essentially, it puts the server into a listening mode, right? And it waits for incoming connections, right? So it's basically a blocking call, so that it makes the server wait, right? So accept is basically from the name is it initiates this connection, right? So it does a series of back and forth communication between the server and client, which you don't need to be aware of, but basically it accepts a connection. You can think of it like that, right? And then close obviously just closes the connection to the client, right? So these are the main methods that we're going to use to build the server and the client as well. The client is a very, very simple application. You basically open a connection, right? Send some information and receive some information and then close the connection. So the server does a few things. So I'll just go over it quickly. So first of all, you want to import socket, right? For the first part, right? Which is already should be in with should be like compiled with Python already, so you don't have to download anything new. So this is the server code. So I'm using the socket library itself, right? So the first thing basically I'm doing is, you can do this in one step, but I'm kind of breaking it up into multiple steps. I'm creating a socket object, right? That's what I'm doing. So this line here creates a socket object and assigns it to this variable here, right? So this creates this object, and I'm writing that I'm creating this object successfully, basically, right? Usually, if it fails, you'll see if it fails. Usually, it doesn't fail since there's no problem with it, right? And this is where I'm assigning a port, or creating a port, actually. I'm not really assigning the port itself, right? Honestly, you can pick any port you want, as long as it's not between, I think, 0 and 1024. So as long as it's 1024 and above, usually that's fine, right? Because those are reserved ports by the OS. So this is where I'm using bind, right? So essentially here I'm binding this tuple. It's a tuple, right? So this is a tuple between the IP address and port. So I'm combining that tuple together, right? And I'm binding that on that. So you can see here that I left the IP address blank, so that I can accept any incoming connection, essentially, right? And then just a debugging statement telling me that I binded that socket to that specific port, right? And then listen. So remember, listening allows the server or this application to start listening at that specific binded port, right? And then I have this while true. So essentially, this part here is where I wait for this client to connect, right? So I'm just waiting, essentially, for the client to connect. And once a client actually connects, I accept it, right? Using that same method, I accept, right, that we used. And accept returns two parameters. It returns the connection itself, the object to the connection, which is I called C here, and the address of the client as another output for this method, right? So I just printed the debug statement telling me the address of that connection, who connected to me. And essentially I'm creating a string message, so basically a string, I called message. And then I encode it, and usually encoding is done at UTF-8, which is a specific encoding method, which is this one here, UTF-8. And then I send it at the same line. I'm encoding it and sending it to that client. And then I close that connection. And then I keep waiting again for the next incoming. So it's a loop, right? So that's essentially what the server is doing. Any questions just about the server for now, or is it mainly clear, or do you think it's confusing a bit? Everything clear? Okay. So the client is actually even simpler. So similar to the server, I have to create a socket. So usually a socket is a way to interface with the kernel, right? Because the way this works is the kernel is the one that's sending and receiving this information on your behalf, right? But it only can send you the right information if you have the right port. So make sure that you have the right port that you can connect into, right? Similarly, I make a socket object, right? I assign the same port, right? Because I'm connecting to the same port in that application, right? Then I'm connecting. Obviously, I'm using the local host to connect. So this is an example of an IP address, right? And technically, this is an IPv4 or version 4, right? Don't worry about too much, but basically, it's a series of 4 numbers, right? Usually 127.0.0.1 is the local host, or basically what you're saying is, I'm sending the information down that pipeline, the architecture, OSI, TCP/IP model, all the way down to the physical layer, and then back up on the same machine. So basically, I'm sending that information to the kernel, to the OS. The OS is taking that information, decapsulating it, but instead of sending it out on the gateway or towards the open internet, it recapsulates again and sends it back up to that architecture, right? To the models, or the layers, sorry, right? So this is saying basically I'm just sending the information to the same machine. That's it. And then once I connect, usually the server is going to send me something, so I'm waiting for I'm receiving something. So I'm receiving some information from the server, right? And usually it's in bytes, that's why it's 1024 bytes. I'm printing that, right? And then I'm closing the connection, right? It's a very simple client code. Basically, it just connects, wait for the server to send something to me, and then I close the connection. That's it, right? Usually when you want to test it, you don't use Jupyter Notebooks. You want to open your own. So usually I use PowerShell. Right. Then just type Python. I think I called it client 1, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just make sure. Yeah, it's the same. It's the same exact code. So this is this client, and this is the server. I think I have it here. So I added some information, more information. So when I created this object, I added a bit more information that's usually by default it's default information. But basically, this is saying that the address family is Internet Protocol IP address family, and a sock stream. This is a macro basically, right? But it does the same thing, right? So let me actually run the server. Oh. One second. Oh. Right. So basically, this is going through the same code. It tells you. I don't know if you can see this, but maybe I can zoom in. Okay, I'm not sure how to increase. Yeah. So hopefully you can see this if it's not too small. So yeah, I created a socket. I bonded it to that specific port, right? And now I'm telling, basically the server is waiting, just listening and waiting on that port, right? So just open another shell. Right. So once I actually connect, I'm just writing the time that I connected on. So again, this is in bytes, so I'm just converting this from bytes to text, to string. So the server basically got a connection. Again, I just wrote the tuple, the IP address and port. Obviously, it's a different port, right? So the client actually opens another socket, obviously, right? And it creates a new port because you can't use the same port. Otherwise, there's going to be a conflict, right? So I'm using a different port. And this is actually assigned by the OS randomly. So it picks the next open port number, basically, right, to connect to. But the IP address has to be the same, right? So once I connect to it, basically the server builds a message, right? And this is the message, right? It tells the client, thank you for connecting, and just writes the time and day, right? That's it. And then closes the connection. And it's a loop, so the server keeps waiting again, right? That's pretty much it. So I guess this is basically the simple example of using a socket to just connect between its client-server architecture, or there's a client and server that you connect to, or two. Yeah. What I want to do now is let's see, it's 3:30. I just want to see. Yeah. So what I want to do now is show you how you can. Well, let me actually open this 1 second. Okay. So what I want to do now is I wanted to use the same exact code, right, between the client and server that we saw just now. And what we want to do, we want to build essentially back and forth chat between the client and server. Instead of just the server sending it back just a message and then closing the connection, you keep the connection open and then wait for a response, right? So it's going to be a back and forth messaging, right, between the client and server. So this is just an extension of that, of this application, right? Anybody have any questions about this, first of all? No questions? It's all clear? Really? In that case, then do you know how to extend it so that you can basically talk back and forth? Right. So I can give you a hint. Basically, what you can do is, well, obviously don't close the connection here, right? Same thing as when you sent a message here. Basically, you're sending a message. You want to wait for a response, right? So within the loop, I'll just show you what basically. So wait. So this is how we wait for. So whenever you're waiting to receive something, you want to decode the message, right? And whenever one is sent something, you want to encode the message, right? So just wait for the response, right? And then from the server side, make an input as a response, right? That's pretty much all you do, right? And then send that input. And then go back and wait for the response. So within the same loop, so essentially here, within the same loop, this is where I'm sending the response, or creating the response, right? Or actually, this is not a response. Oh, it's a response to the connection, right? Instead of doing that, wait for some information from the client. Once you receive some information from the client, respond, right? So create another message, encode it, and then send it and then wait for a response. And you can exit that, let's say, chat back and forth by having a keyword or some specific text, such as exit or shutdown or something like that, that closes the application or closes both sides, right? You can break out of this loop, basically, right? So I guess that's what you can do right now. If you have no questions, and if you need help, let me know. So how long do you think you need? Like 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Huh? ما اسمع. Basically just extend this application where you connect the client to the server. The server is listening and the client is connecting. And instead of closing the connection, just talk back and forth. So wait for a response. Does that make sense? No? So essentially here, we went through the basic server, right? So this is a basic server, essentially, right? So we created the socket object, and we binded it to a specific port, right? So we left the IP for any connection. So the IP address is just a way of identifying that server, right? In the network, essentially, right? So we instruct the server to listen using this method, which is part of the socket library. And this allows the server to just wait for incoming connections, right? Through that specific port, right? The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 port, right? Once we are telling the server to listen, we have this infinite loop. 1 second, the mouse is. Once we have this infinite loop that does what? Essentially, it just waits for incoming connection. Once that connection comes in from anywhere, anytime, we grab the address of that connection and the connection object itself, right? So with this connection object, essentially, you don't need this, but if you have it, it's fine. You can remove it. We just write a debugging statement that we got this connection from it, and then this is where we're actually sending the information back to the client, right? So we create a message, right? We encode that and we send it using that connection.send. So the connection itself is given to us from that incoming connection, from that at that port, at that socket. Then we just send it back, right? So and then we're basically closing the connection, right, at the end. So instead of closing the connection, what you want to do is you want to close it only when there's a specific, let's say, command or string, such as, for example, exit or shut down or something like that, basically, right? It's up to you how you want to do it. And then you want just to have a back and forth message chatting, right? So you start a connection, you wait for the client to set something. Once the client sends a specific string, for example, the server decodes it and then creates a new string and then sends it back, right? And then you have to open two applications. So you have open two PowerShells. So I'll show you an example how this works. So let me actually show you an example. 1 second. So maybe once you see an example, it'll be clear. Let me close this. 1 second. Like that, right? So I'll just do this. So I connected, right? So now we connected it. So I'm telling the client, so the server got a connection, right, through that specific port. Okay, and now the client is waiting for input to send to the server. So I can type whatever, hi, and the server receives it, right? And the server now is given the chance to talk back to the client. It responds to hello, for example, right? And so forth. It's like a chat, right, between the server and client. The only way you can exit is by typing exit, right? And then you close the connection and you're done. Does that make sense? This is essentially what you're trying to do. So the first application just initiates that connection, the server sends one message to the client and then closes the connection. Now you want to extend it and have this chatting application between the server and client. We're going to extend it again later on, but for now, this is what I wanted you guys to do. And this shouldn't take you too long because it's the same code. You won't really change much of the code, but you're just, within that while loop, you're adding more information, right? So you're building a string, encoding it, sending it, and then waiting for a response, right? And the way you wait is by using this, where is it? Obviously, you want to move this out, so you want to accept it somewhere above, all right? And then within the while true, once you have that connection ready, essentially you want to wait for a response. So similar to this code, let me actually grab the code. Similar to this code here. So, right? And this is basically the connection itself, right? So this actually waits for a buffer, the buffer to fill up to about 1 kilobyte, and then you decode that. And then once you decode it, you just put it in message, and then you print it, right? And you can check the string. If the string is exit, then you can just close the application, right? So does that make sense? هلا؟ اوكي. المشكلة هذا ما راضي يفتح. هلا؟ ما اسمع. اي الواي فاي شابك على تليفون. لا مو شابك على تليفون لا. اوكي. But in the meantime, you can write it quickly if you want to try writing it. Okay. 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 Can I paste the name? اوكي ما ادري وصل لكم ديسكورد؟ تستعملون ديسكورد كلكم صح؟ So if you want to make this like code more robust, you can try except or try catch that idea. So in case you have some issue, you can gracefully close the connection instead of abruptly close the connection. But that's not that important here. لقيتوه ديسكورد موجود؟ في حد عنده سؤال شيء ولا صار عندكم؟ سويتوا؟ صدق والله؟ ايه هلا؟ ايه
شنو اكتب عشان اطلع؟
اي اول شيء is this the same directory ولا لا؟ the file the folder this new folder هذا وين صاير؟
بالديسكتوب.
يعني هني راح يكون
عيب هذا
موجود. زين طق هني اكتب مثلا بايثون. انت سميته نتوركينج كذي. ما في موجود هنا متأكد. اي ما في موجود نتوركينج. دقيقة بس شوف موجود هنا. لا تحت ديسكتوب. لا هني داخل هذا شوف. بس سوي كوبي هني سيدي. لحظة سوي كذي. سوري مو كذي. اوكي كذي. ايوه اوكي. الحين نكتب بايثون نتوركينج. اسوي شنو هذا عندك؟ سوري انت لازم كذي يمكن.
لازم كابيتال.
يمكن عندك انت الفيرجن غير. هذه ساعات تصير. اي الحين شوف listening. الحين بس بطل واحد ثاني. نفس الشيء راح يكون
واحد فيهم كلاينت والثاني سيرفر.
اي لازم كذي. بعدين بايثون سويته كونكت صح؟ سويته كونكت؟ اي اوكي. سوري ما سويت له امبورت.
نسيت.
اوكي. ايه عندك كذا مشكلة. اوكي. ايه المسج انكودينج هني. سوري. ايه عادي. انكود كاتبها غلط. انكود عندك واحدة زايدة. ايوه كذي. زين بعدين تروح هني. اوكي listening بس. هني لازم تعدل شوي التم سي تايم كان اوصل. بس انه هني
الحين ما
اي كونكت. اي مو مشكلة بس ترى موجود بالديسكورد. تنزله اذا تبي تاخذ نفسه بالضبط موجود بالديسكورد.
بفكر شلون.
اي مو مشكلة.
استخدم في ستيتمنت. اقدر استخدم.
اي تقدر عشان تشيك المسج السترنج.
وين احطها بالضبط؟
اي اول شيء
شو تسوي؟
لا لان شنو قاعد اقول لك وذ كونكشن. اذا الكونكشن موجود من ساعات عندك كونكشن يجيك شيء بس الكونكشن فيه شيء غلط. بس تشيلها عادي. لو تشيلها ما راح يشتغل ما له شغل. انزين بس دقيقه. شنو المفروض يعني شنو اللي تسوي؟ اول شيء هذه الاكسبت تشيلها برا اللوب.
حطها برا.
لان انت اونلي اكسبت 1 يصير في شاتنج 1 بعدين لين ايوه كذي. انزين هني شو يصير؟ هني راح يو ريسيف ريسبونس. فنفس الشيء هذا هني خله برا. تقدر هذا كله تخليه برا مو مشكله. زين
حتى الكلوز اخليه تحت.
لا الكلوز اي صح تقدر تخليه تحت مو مشكله عشان تسوي بريك صح. اذا تبي تسوي بهالطريقه لا شو صار؟
هني اسوي بريك بعدين راح يطلع برا اللوب.
ايوه بالضبط
اسوي كلوز. اوكي
لحظه بس في هني اشياء. حط مثلا اكتب كونتينيو دقيقه عشان بس ما يصير فيه ايوه. شو تسوي هني مثلا تحط مسج ريسيفد اللي هو
بورت ولا
لحظه مسج سوكت او شو كونكشن تسوي كونكشن مو هذه كذي اوكي. فهني ايش راح يصير؟ راح ينطر لين يجي الانفورميشن بعدين انت شو تسوي؟ هني يتشيك ذا مسج مثلا اي مثلا وين اي اوكي مثلا بريك تحط اوكي بس. وبعدين شنو؟ بعدين هني اذا مو اكزت معناته دزلك شيء يو برنت مثلا يو كان برنت مثلا وين هذه هني سيرفر وبعدين برسنت اس او سوري شلون برسنت اس يصير كذي نسيت والله شو اسمه مسج كذي فهمت شيء كذي بيسكلي يعني. بعدين تحط شو اسمه تحط انبوت اللي هو مثل مسج كونز سوري هذا كلاينت مو سيرفر هذا اي من الكلاينت هني سيرفر. تحط انبوت مثلا او يا you basically wait for the input من اليوزر. انزين you wait for an input وبعدين you send that input. هني also want to check نفس الشيء هني honestly you want to check for both. هذا كان انت كتبت exit it will close the connection بعد نفس الشيء يعني فهمت؟ it can close it can close من الكلاينت or server يعني شنو قصدي؟ كذا. فهني شنو تسوي؟ you encapsulated نفس الشيء تسوي connection dot send ايش يسمونه المسج dot encode كذا اوكي. وكنت يرد نفسه عادي هاي ترى تشيلها كذا يرد نفسه ما ينطر الريسبونس كذا. فهمت شنو قصدي؟ بس شيء كذا ما في غلطات كذي. شنو؟
هني استدعي
اي لازم تروح للفولدر لوكيشن. هذا شيء طبيعي شلون بتشغل البرنامج كذا فاهمني؟ هو انصحك لا تسمي نيو فولدر سمى شيء
حاولت اغير بس ما خلاني تو.
لا رد هني رد ديسكتوب لا طق على ديسكتوب ايوه هذه طق عليه اكتب مثلا تيست غير هني لا بس طق عليه لا طق عليه ايوه لا
متعود في دوت
لا كذي دقيقة بس
عشان شي
شنو لا هذه رينيم ايه اكتب تيست مثلا
عشان شي ويندوز 10 احسن.
اي لازم بس صك هذا انا مبطله هني انت فصكه واما هني مبطله بس صك هذا ما عليه عشان يتغير. بعدين بطله هني يسكوت شوي بطيء اسمع عليه عادي. بس فاهم شنو قصدي صح؟ الحين شنو الحين تسوي كوبي على طول على هذا، يعني مثلا هني تسوي بس كوبي وتروح هني بطل شل زين، وتسوي على طول هني راح يقط لك مكان عادي العام الهوم، تسوي كذي على طول فيوديك. بعدين تسوي بايثون
دوت اسمه
اي السيرفر سوري مو سيرفر، انت سميته نتوركينج. ايوه كذا. اي شوف الليسننج بس شنو يمكن يكون فيه مشكله، فبس بطل واحد ثاني.
ليش يكون في مشكلة؟
لان يمكن فيه غلطات فتدري.
يعني كودي أنا.
اي نفسه الكود نفسه فيه غلطات. ليش ما سوى كوبي هذا كوبي، بعدين شيء هني بايثون كونكت صح هذا. اي شوف في ايرور او اس ايرور ونسميها زان ساكت. اوكي هني احمد مو الكونكشن سوى دقيقة لحظة. شنو هذا؟ ليش في اثنين هني؟ الديسكورد موجود، البيسك موجود. شو تسوي كذي سلكت فولدر. اوكي انزين. الحين هني قاعد يقول لك ان في شيء غلط بالسند بارت. سوري انت socket دوت سند.
ليش socket دوت سند؟
لأن this has to be a socket. بعدين لا هذا المفروض connection. ليش كان يقول لي في مشكلة؟ دقيقة خليني أشيك شو السالفة. ليش في مشكلة؟ أنت شيء أوكي ولا؟
يقول لك the Python was not found running without argument.
ما عنديش بايثون؟
توني نزلته. شنو؟ توني نزلته. قبل وين؟
لا مو كذي. بطلي باور شيل.
هذا؟
لا موجود.
موجود.
شنو هذا؟ اوكي. لحظة شنو هذا؟ يقصك هذا.
افتح واحد جديد.
لا الحين هذا هني انت وين مسيفته هذا؟
هذا بالديسكتوب.
انزين وين الباور شيل؟ هذا باور شيل هني. اي
مو كمان.
لا عادي هذا باور شيل نفس الشيء يصير. شو تسوين؟ تروحين بس go to this location مال open الفولدر كوبي.
حلو.
هني تروحين سيدي كذي، بعدين كتبي بايثون. شنو سميتيه؟ سيرفر صح؟
اي دي 1.
لا سيرفر عادي يعني.
successfully.
انت مشغلتها مكان ثاني؟
وين؟ لحظة شوف. دي 1.
لا مو شيء قصدي، انت في بطل شيء ثاني هني؟ لا اوكي مو هذا. نشوف
لا مو شيء، ماكو شيء.
1 هني شغال اوكي هي قاعد هو لكن الحين المفروض يشتغل. ايوه شوفي شغال. الحين شو تسوين؟ بس بطلي واحد ثاني كنا
بعد واحد ثاني بس.
عشان كلاينت. ايه سوري.
ارجع.
الحين نفس الشيء لازم نسوي سي دي على المكان نفسه. وين موجود الفولدر؟ دي هذه.
بشكل عام يعني.
اي لازم تروحين له عشان شلون راح تشغلينه هذا المشكله.
اوكي.
شنو هني؟ سوري.
كنترول سي.
بعدين بايثون كلاينت سميته كذي.
شلون كتبته بسرعة؟
تاب.
اوكي. بس بعدين شو؟
بس يعني الحين شغل شوف الحين الكلاينت وصل للسيرفر يعني صار في كونكشن بينهم.
الحين اقدر اراسل.
شوفي صار في كونكشن ديسكلوز ديسكونكشن بس تسوي كذي. انت عندك بس مشكله واحده ان هني غيرتيه اتوقع صح؟
لا ما غيرت شيء. خذيت كوبي بس.
يعني ليش مو مشكله هو بالنهايه كونكتد بس ما صار ديسكونكشن كان كلوزنج كونكشن في كلاينت بس الحين شغال.
مو لازم اول شيء كنترول
مو مشكله
كلوز تسكر
عادي. الحين شو تسوين؟ نفس الفكره ان instead of connecting accepting the connection هني خلي برا اللوب وداخل اللوب سوي الاكسشينج بينك انت والسيرفر يعني create a message. اول شيء السيرفر waits for a message receives a message
ينطر رساله
من الكلاينت. زين once you receive a message تسوين you decode it يعني تاخذين السترينج and then you compare the string مع keyword مثلا exit. هذا كان exit then you break from this loop or you close the connection. هذا ما كان exit شيء ثاني you print it and then you send then you take input من اليوزر من السيرفر whoever that server is تكتب من شيء لا and you send it to the client. فهمتني؟
والله صعب كلامك.
ايه لايك وات شود اذا كان شنو وريتكم تو يعني اللي وريتكم اياه هذا نفسه شوفي. ايه
بس انا مو حاسبه هني بالديسكورد بس مو حاسبه الكود.
ليش؟ لا مو بابليك. شنو هذا؟ لا كارز اوكي لازم يحطونك. احمد موجود لان هو مسؤول عن هذا المفروض يحطك بال one of the tabs مال السمر كورس.
اوكي
فهمتني؟ let me put it under ما ادري اذا يصير احطه public announcement ولا ترى بازي يسوي تليفون. اوكي دقيقه واحده الحين يعني بس عشان اوريكم مره ثانيه شنو انا قصدي شنو ابيكم تسوون. Hey, so the server will still listen to the same thing. Once I connect it, now I connected, okay? So what happens is the server now is waiting for a message from the client, okay? The client, which is on the right side, the other side, sends some message, salam, right? The server receives that message, prints it, and then checks. Is this exit? مثلا كمثال exit. إذا كان exit, you close the connection. You break and close the connection from both sides. If it's not exit, you print it and the server then takes input from the user, from me, and then sends that information to the client. مثلا الحين أنا بصوب السيرفر وأكتب سلام بعد كذي. The client receives it هني. Okay. And then it's back and forth. لين واحد فيهم يكتب exit. لين مثلا خلينا نقول مثلا client كتب exit, then you close the connection from both sides. فهمتي شنو قصدي؟ That's the application. That's what you're trying to do. Is it still confusing? So I forgot to show you two main commands. One of them is send, which you've seen يعني نفس هذه send. إنزين. This is sending a message. You're encoding the message and you're sending it. Okay. في كمان ثاني اسمه receive اللي هو موجود بالكلاينت هذا. Receive. S is the socket, right? Object of the socket and you're receiving information. right? So send and receive are the two commands I use to send and receive information, obviously. صح؟ Okay, بس تعرف فاهمين يعني. Okay. So you use the same command هني بس بالسيرفر use the same command in the client. So the client, you actually need to change the client a lot. Let me show you what I'm doing in the client. So once I connect in the client, this is exactly what I'm doing. So I take input at the client side, right? وين الماوس؟ So here I'm taking input at the client side at line 10, right? And then all I do is encode that input, the message, and then send it through that port, the same connection, right, that I opened. And then I check, is it exit? If it is, then I close the connection, right? If not, then I just wait for the response. So this is how you wait for a response, dot receive, right? Same idea. And here, this 1024 is just the buffer size in bytes. So 1 kilobyte. 1024 is 1 kilobyte, صح? كذي. Right? And I'm decoding it in UTF-8. UTF-8 is just a standard, which you will say, just use the same thing, the same standard. And then again, I check again, is the response exit? If it is, then I just close the connection. Otherwise, I print the response and then go back and do the same thing again. Again and again and again, until I close the connection. فهمتوني? That's essentially what the client is doing. بس. Is it clear or? Who's still stuck at 50%? Who actually didn't even get the initial code to work? هذا الماوس معلق لحظة. Okay. Who still didn't get this to work at least? Okay. Let me. أنتي didn't work because ما نزل كود؟
ما حصلت بالسؤال.
انزين. عندك أحد يمكن يدز لك إياه؟ خلاص خليه يدز لك على واتساب ولا شيء كذي. You can just copy it يعني. لا نزل ليش؟ إيه لحظة.
بس ما نعرف شلون نسوي.
لا هني ما في بايثون هني؟ اوكي لازم تنزلين بايثون، ما عندك بايثون. مو مشكلة. عادي نزلي كذي مو مشكلة عادي.
ونحط الكود يسوي ران ويشتغل.
المفروض اي. في حد عنده سؤال ثاني معلق شيء؟ معلقين؟ ايش فيكم تستحون ترى عادي يعني. انزين.
ما فهمت شلون اسوي.
ما فهمت الكود هذا ولا ما فهمتي شو تسوين بعده؟
اسوي اريد الوايل لوب ثاني.
Yes. So don't accept while loop at the connection side. خليه برا. And then once the connection comes in, you accept it. شو تسوين؟ You wait for the response from the client. The client راح يدز لك شيء. You wait for the response, and then you print that response, decode it and print it, and then you create a new message and then send it to the client, back and forth. It's a chat. It's a ها؟ لا نفسه لا نفسه. أنا عادي تدخلون نفسه لأن بالنهاية قاعد تكلمون نفسكم يعني قاعد تدزينه بنفس الماشين. لو قاعد تدزينه بين ماشين لماشين هني بلا لازم تغيرونه. هذا كان two servers on the same port. إنه يصير في conflict هنا. ما عندك ديسكورد بعد؟ ما عندك ديسكورد؟ في ناس ما عندهم ديسكورد ترى اتوقع. ما
فبشوف انا نفسه ولا
كونكشن ريفيوز. لحظه انت اول شيء شغلتيه هني صح؟ ايه اي لا تشغلين الكلاينت اول، شغلي السيرفر اول بس don't do it here. لحظة أوصلك هذا. Don't do it on VS Code. VS Code is just the editor. Don't run it on VS Code. Run it on a PowerShell أو يعني command window. فهمتني؟ terminal. يعني so open. أنت already Mac. Okay, Mac مو مشكلة. So go to the. ها؟ أي مو مشكلة. الحين go to that location of the folder. وين مسيب server.py or client.py. Okay. You can just open it here. Okay. Okay, I haven't used Mac. Okay, لا هذه مو كذا مو هذا. Sorry. زين هذا open and هني كاهو. اوكي شو تسوين؟ اوكي شنو هذا؟ اوكي بس هني بطلي يشوف ريفيل ان فولدر ان فايندر مو فولدر. والله كان من زمان مستعمل ماك والله. انزين هني هذا اللوكيشن هذا انجينير ماي منور. انزين هذا بس طلعيه بالترمينال يعني جو تو ات من اس. اوكي موجود هني. اوكي خلاص يعني ما له داعي تدورين عليه. كاهو هني موجود سيرفر. معلش بايثون.
لا البرنامج موجود.
اتوقع you can do this pip install.
هو حملته بس ما قدرت اشتغل.
معلش بيب. maybe sudo apt get python. حطي الباسورد ما تشوفه. ما عندي. اوكي. شلون تنزلين بايثون بماك؟ بالاب ستور يمكن؟
نزلته بس ما في مكان بالداونلود.
زين منو عنده ماك هني؟ في احد عنده ماك؟ شلون نزلتوا بايثون؟ باكج. اوكي اوبن ات ما ادري. use the first drag then out of the trash. ايش بالاسرع؟ اوكي هاي الودي بالديسكتوب مو مشكلة. install. اوكي سويتي كذي يعني؟
اي
سويتي يعني. هاي ليش؟ شوفي اذا يشتغل ولا لا. يوم يخلص هذا بس انا خليني اشوف شغله دقيقه شنو؟
ثاني هذا.
انت الحين ما اشتغل وياك هذا؟ الكونكشن دوت سند. لحظة حاطه شنو؟
establishing a connection
اي
لما قاعد يدخل الوايل لوب يعني after establishing connection قاعد
لا الحين انت بس بشوف دقيقة مرة ثانية بس بشوف شلون. هذا صح؟ اي اوكي شو قصدك؟ اوكي لحظة دقيقة. حط UTF 8 مو مشكلة، دي بس احتياط. زين يمكن هذا مشكلة. اوكي ما ادري يمكن كذي ساعات. لا نفس المشكلة. شلون ساكت هذا شو يعني؟
الكلاينت في شيء ناقص يمكن عشان كذي.
اي الكلاينت في شيء ناقص بس اي بس شنو راح يصير؟ السيرفر راح ينطر الكلاينت، لان هذا راح ينطر سيرفر وهذا السيرفر راح ينطر كلاينت، اثنيناتهم ينطرون بعض، فهمت؟ بس
في امبورت ثاني لازم نسويه ولا
لا عادي اتوقع كذي. كونكشن زين بس دي هي المشكلة صح؟ هي لاين نمبر 22. دقيقة بس غيره ما يخالف. خلينا نسوي كذي فروم ساكت امبورت كل شيء. اوكي وشيل هذه راح اغيره شوية ما عليه. اي مو مشكلة تشيل هذه. ليش؟ غالبا انت ما يطلع عندك يعني التايب سيتنج على قولتهم، بس مو مشكلة هذه اكسبت. زين خلينا نشوف. I send this message and I'm receiving it. زين دقيقة. اي سوي كومنت على هذا دقيقة سوري. زين مو مشكلة. الحين نجرب شوف بس بشوف هناك فوق يمكن. اي شوف الحين اثنيناتهم ناطرين بعض.
فواحد منهم يتكلم.
اي الحين شنو المشكلة؟ المشكلة اثنيناتهم ناطرين بعض.
لازم واحد بس واحد يعني.
اي لا المفروض هذا قاعد ينطر هذا يدز، او تبي العكس كيفك، بس يعني بالنهاية تصك هذا لما اعلق شوية ما عليه. شو تسوي هني؟ هني خلي السيرفر ينطر، وهني تبي تسوي نفس الشيء بس وايل لوب. يعني instead of this comment this out. شو تسوي هني؟ مثلا وايل true، ونفس الشيء مثلا تسوي مسج equals مثلا input.
نفس
اي نفس هذاك اي كلاينت
نفس الكونديشن.
اي كذي.
اذا اكزت
بالضبط. بس يسندد قبل هذا يسندد مثلا هني connect s.send message dot encode انزين كذي وبعدين اف مسج exit مثلا شيء كذي بريك وهني you want to wait ف s dot receive 1024 بايتس انزين هو you can print it عادي يعني you can print this انزين لا انزين وبعدين لحظة before you print it save it in message that receive انزين دوت ديكود صح انزين هني بس اطبع مسج
شنو يسوي؟
شنو هو يو ريسيف بايتس ديكود يحوله من بايتس لسترنج والعكس صح
توها طلعت ستاك اوفر فلو نفس الشيء بس مو حاط ديكود
ممكن ساعات يمكن طوروا هذا انا متعود دائما كنت اسوي قبل فالصراحه يعني ممكن الحين تغيروا ما ادري بس يعني هذا نستعمله دائما يمكن ديكود يو تي اف 8 كله كذي بس يعني اذا مو شرط ما ادري شوف شو تسوي هني جست برنت ذا مسج هذا من السيرفر فبرنت كذي سيرفر مثلا انزين نفس الشيء نفس اللي سويناه قبل تذكر نفس الشيء بالضبط يعني
سوي بعد مرة
ما في مشكلة انت الكلاينت دوره فهمت هذه خلنا كذي فهمت كذي اذا صار بريك يو كلوز بس كذي ف لحظة تبي تبطل واحد ثاني هني باور شيل OneDrive desktop test Python
سيرفر كابيتال
اي غير عادي زين الحين once you run this شوف صار كونكت يمكن شلته مو مشكلة دي كيف ليش بس انت ظهر مايك بس هذا ما صار اي هذا لازم تعدله شويه اي مو مشكله
بس هذا حط سطر
اي يعني لازم تعدله شويه بس اي فهمت شنو قصدي؟ انا شاد ظهري فلازم ما اقدر اجلس
هني ورا السكند اف ستيتمنت
اي الانبوت خله اكتب سيرفر ولا شيء الانبوت سيرفر وعشان تعرف منو قاعد يتكلم حق منو ايوه كذا
لانه هو وين كان قاعد يطبع
صح اي وهني نفس الشيء اطبع اي بس انت تشيلها يعني المره داي انا عبالي متعود على شو اسمه اي سي بروسس حتى نفس الشيء في كنت يعني عادي بس هو ترى من كذي هذا يعني هاي الفكره في حد من السؤال ثاني في حد الحين خلاص انا خلنا نروح على الكود يمكن احسن كذي ادز لكم اياه عشان تشوفون انتم بروحكم عشان في شيء ثاني بسويه بس بعدها so what you guys can do basically هني I changed the bit slightly more يعني I made it into a function so I mean main just starts the function so all I'm doing is this so the server does the same thing so I make a socket object I add the host name and port number هني كاتب أنا local host so local host the OS understands the local host is 127.0.0.1 نفسه فماكو فرق بالأرقام يعني سواء تعطينا هالاسم ولا الرقم يطلع نفسه اوكي البايند listen Then here just debug statement to tell the user I'm listening on this port, this host on this port. And then here is where I'm accepting it. تذكرون مو داخل اللوب برا اللوب. شلته برا اللوب, I'm accepting it. And then all I do once I establish the connection, I wait. I wait for the client to send me a message. Okay? So once the client, so this is the client code. Let me show you the client code. The client is relatively simple, bad, right? I create the socket object because again, the only way to communicate, we have to create a socket. This is why this is called socket programming, right? So I create a socket. I do the same thing. The host and port number should be the same, right? Because I'm connecting to that server, right? So this is where I connect to the server using the same host 127.0.0.1 and the port number, which should be the same port number. And then once this connection, طبعا هني you have to put it in try catch or try accept عشان to make sure that there is no error. بس يعني I'm not doing any validation, okay? Then I have this while true. And it's the same thing as the server code, right? The only thing that's different is that the client is the one who sends the information first, right? Not the server. I mean, you can change it, it's up to you. So the client takes some input from the user, encodes it and sends it, right? And then I'm checking what I sent. If what I sent was the keyword or key character that tells me to exit, break this while true loop, for example, exit, then I just I close the connection and I break, right, to close the connection. Otherwise, if it's not exit, what do? I wait for the response, right? Right? Oh, sorry. هذا علق مرة ثانية. Okay. Right? And I do the same thing again, right? And I just print the response and then go back the loop again. And it's like back and forth nonstop, right? Is it clear or? Is it clear? Madri? It seems not clear then. Okay. So what don't you guys understand? Just so that I can go over again. All right. Yes. صح. أول شيء طبعا لازم تشغلين server أول. And the server is the one who accepts the incoming connection. Yeah, once you connect, once you establish the connection, then you exchange the messages back and forth. Yes. بالضبط، واحد فيهم لازم يسوي هالشيء بالضبط. ايه بس. ايه. الكود نفس الشيء قاعد يسوي، يعني مثلا هني I take the input, I encode it, right, and then I send it, right, and then I just check what I sent. What I sent was exit, then I just close the connection by breaking the while loop, يعني, right, and then if it's not that, then I just wait for the response. So this is where I wait for the response. So receive is a blocking statement. It blocks the running code. So there's a thread running, right, the main thread. So the main thread sleeps until I receive something in the buffer. So this is the receive accepts 1024 bytes in the buffer. فهمتني؟ اي يبطلش بفر ثاني، يعني it flushes the buffer يوديه حق الابلكيشن and it waits again. فهمتني؟ So you can send more than 1024 but you have to wait. كذا. فهمتني؟ But yeah, this is the basics of يعني مثلا client server communication خلينا نقول. Okay. So I'll send the code this version to the Discord thing. Let me actually send it now before I forget. So I'll just send this here. So what I want to do now is I want to show you that you can use the socket programming to create a mailing client. So ايه اوكي اي بس ما قدرت اسوي سنه اوكي اكيد اكيد Then, so I'm going to demonstrate something and then send you the code because it's a bit complicated. So there's a protocol called SNMP. Okay, so it's a mailing protocol. So it's what the Hotmail, Gmail, the rest communicate on, the basics of communication using mailing, right? Which you need to have a receiver, a sender, mailing address, chili. Let me find the code 1 second. Where did I put it? One second. One second. One second, just want to make sure. No, it's not this. Okay. I have it here somewhere, this module. There you go. Yeah, it's this one here. Okay. So I just want to show you how you can use this SMTP protocol to essentially create or send an email using your mailing client. For example, if you use Gmail, Hotmail, whatever, you can actually grab the login and user and password and then send an email to the client, right? So you can open it in your own client in your browser, right? So the way this works is so this is just an example, yani. So your sender email, whoever, it's up to you who you want to make it at, receiver, right? It could be your other email, let's say, or someone's email. Some subject, the actual subject of the email, the body of the email, right? It could be anything, right? And then these two parts, SMTP server and port number, this is hard-coded. What I mean by that, I mean it's given to you by the client. So, for example, Gmail this is what they use. They use smtp.gmail.com, and the port number is always going to be 587, right? It's a reserved port number. Okay. I think for Hotmail, it's Outlook. Chili, if I'm not mistaken. Hotmail is this Outlook. They use Outlook now. Okay. So then the login username, right? And then the password. The password, obviously, this is not my password, just so you know. This is not my password. This is generated from the application password. Obviously, I don't want to share it with you guys. That's going to be a problem. Don't copy it. But what this password is, how is it generated? It's generated by, if you go to, like, for example, Gmail, Hotmail, there's a tab under security where you can generate this application password, right? And it's a 16-digit password or 16-character password. that you use in this application. And so how does this actually work? So once I have all this information, I send this entire information, right, as parameters to this method called send mail or send email, right? So I'm using something called MIME text object, all right? So this is an IETF standard, right? The Internet Engineering Task Force standard. Don't worry about it too much, how this works, but you can use this object to encapsulate your message and then use SMTP to encapsulate that and send it to the mailing client. So you use a constructor, you create this, general message, add that from to and subject attributes to whatever you wrote, attach this body, which is a plain message. So this is just, you can use the same one, right? And then this is where I'm attaching the server information. So this is the server information, right? The SMTP server information. Again, I'll send it to you. You can see how this works. But probably the biggest issue is getting that 16-digit password. So I'll just show you how this works. 1 second. Okay, not this one. Yeah, this one. Okay, so this password is given to me by Gmail. So if I go to Gmail, 1 second. Right, if I go to security or settings, right, if you just go to security and then type in app passwords, so it's this one here, I think. 1 second. So I actually created this, yesterday, but let me create one more. So call it Python script, for example. So just copy this. So it creates a new one every time. Paste it here. So it's only a one-time thing, basically, Anthony. And then you can just run this, actually. So it's something like that. Doesn't matter what you send. So if you run this, yeah. So I'm just connecting to the kernel. Yeah, so I sent the email, right? So if you go back to the mail no wait, not this. I sent it from here to my Gmail, right? So here. So if you go all the way up, yeah. See, I received it here. Does that make sense? So you can send, basically this is what I'm saying. You can use SMTP, the protocol itself, to send this application here, right? And it tells you who it's sent by, what. So this uses SMTP, and it uses this MIME text object, which encapsulates SMTP. It just makes it easier for you to use it, because if you want to use pure SMTP, it becomes a bit difficult, right? So it's just a library that you can use to help you with this. So this is just one way of using. So this is similar to socket programming. It's technically not sockets. It's different, but it's around the same area, right? You're using this specific application level protocol to send this information in the mailing client, and you can actually send this in your own application. So this is how people actually build applications that, let's say, you do something and you receive an email, right? Automated email. This is what an automated email looks like. right? This is how people build it, right? And you can use MIME text, which is a very popular way of sending it, right? So I'll send this one. Obviously, I'm going to remove the password, right? So here you can just type in placeholder. Same thing here, right? Same thing here. Up to you how you want to. All right. So I'll send this, and you can try it out yourself and see if it actually works for you guys. Before I jump to the next, there's one last thing I want to talk about is using multi-threading. So you see in the previous example, so not this example, not the one, the mailing protocol, the client-server protocol that we did, right? It was limited by one client, right? One client can only connect to the server, and then you chat back and forth, and then you close it, right? So now what's next I want to do is I want to make it, well, multi-threaded. So multiple clients can connect to the server, and we can have like a group chat. In WhatsApp, for example, you can have a group chat, right, at WhatsApp, and people can send a message, and everybody can receive it, right? Everybody can see it, right? So you're going to build the same thing. Well, sort of, same thing. Obviously, it's not going to be exactly the same, but same idea, right? And it's just, again, this is just another extension of what we build, but it's a bit more difficult in that you have to use multi-threading. So I don't know if you guys have ever used multi-threading applications, but basically to have a client to have a server that can handle more than one client, you need to have a thread for each client. So who here knows what a thread is? So no one knows what a thread is. Okay. So do you know how applications in the computer work? So applications in the computer work so an application is nothing more than a process in a computer, in memory. So every application is stored as a process. And we call this a process control block. So this is in operating systems. So a thread is like this process, sort of like the idea of an application, but it's like a miniature version, a small version of the process. So we're going to create these threads within the same process to handle more than one client. So you can think of them as helpers. A thread is just a helper. It's a helping object. You can think of it like that, right? We'll see how this works. I'll show you, if you don't know the code for it, I'll show you the code, how this actually works, and you can use it and try it out yourself. But we can take maybe a 10-minute, 15-minute break. In the meantime, if you have questions with the previous thing, the client server, let me know, and we can hopefully figure that out together. So I'll send this one in the in Discord so that you can try it out as well. اشتغل؟ Okay. So I'll just send it here. Okay. عندي سؤال؟ Okay.
كذا شيء دكتور. أول شيء أنا أبي ديسكورد عشان أدش على الكود. شيء ثاني الحين شلون أشغل الحين أنا أخذت الكود
اي
السيرفر والكلاينت شلون أشغل الاثنين مع بعض؟ الحين شغلت السيرفر الحين السيرفر شغال المفروض.
لا السيرفر طفى لحظه. لا مو شغال.
هذول هم موجودين بالداونلود.
إيه لا مو مشكله so that you want to open them in different terminals or shells. Okay, so this is in VS Code. So وين okay. So same idea اللي وريتكم اياه. So PowerShell كذي. You just need the location. اوكي. انت حاططها تحت هني صح؟
بداونلود.
داونلود اوكي مو مشكله بس سوي اوبن بس. where is it؟ نشوف. وايد كا سيرفر هني. Okay, so all I want to do is I want to open this هني, copy this so that I know where to look for it. Then here, okay, here I want to do CD. Okay, على طول download. Okay, never mind. So you want to do is Python server مثلا. Okay, so now the server is listening.
Okay.
So what you want to do, you want to open a new one. So download in Python client. You have more than one client, okay? مشكلة أتوقع عادي. Okay. So now to receive this message, if you go back to this terminal, you got a connection.
Keep closing connection.
Yeah, I don't know why it's stuck. بس مو مشكلة. بالنهاية you got the connection عادي. This one close the connection. So this is working. So now you want to extend this so that instead of having the loop here and you're waiting for a connection, put it above, and then inside the loop, send and receive information between the client and server. So the client sends a message, server waits for the message, decodes it, prints it, and then sends another message from the user. You have to type in the information. كذي. محمد هذا شنو بالضبط يلحقني ولا شنو؟ صدق والله. هلا؟ لا عادي مو مشكلة بس يعني صدمني شوي. ادري لا والله خوش شيء والله. لا والله هاند جسترز مسويها؟ شلون سويتها هذه؟ هي جايبينها كذي. لا والله صدق؟ وين ها امازون؟
اسمها اصبر.
نايس.
فيها فويس كوماند في بنت يعني اقدر اخذ ميكا.
والله شكلي بدور لي شيء كذي. كذي.
فيها شيء وايد حلو. احنا نص بعدين سلايد السبوره يعني تعدل لك السبوره.
ايه بلاينر اوكي فهمت. نايس. نتعلم منك وايد اشياء الصراحه. نتعلم منك وايد اشياء. اسم صح بدي صرت شو اسمه
Okay, so class users, so class individual. Object and the user مع البوست array of posts or list link list or whatever. Yes, any list. Can you list? هذا لازم تفهم. أنت الجمع. هاش تنزل نوصل ماله المفروض بعد لبس. إيه بعد لبس. بس شنو المشكلة؟ المشكلة أن ما أعتقد أحد متوقع ممكن تسوي شيء. فشنو استعمل أنا أهم شيء حتى لو مثلا حتى لو it's not the most efficient it's fine. Or justify شو يسوي السبب ليش سبب. بس yeah you can, I think you can use it initially general domains or يعني صح تغير بس راح بس ما يمكن يوز يعني يمكن يوز ترى structures انا مو انا احكم تستعملون collections من جافا يعني مو كل شيء بس في اشياء اكيد اي بالنهايه جنرالايز ريسيرش يكون مثلا on social media users تحت اليوزر عنده بوست عنده interactions it's generalized object it's custom بس خلينا نشوف انا شو مسوي انا يعني اقدر اقول لك شو الصح والغلط هذه بالنسبه لي اقول لك ما في شيء اسمه وايد غلط ما في شيء غلط ولا ما استوى بس هو اي efficiency بس you have to justify لازم تطلع لي شو انت تقدر بس يعني بس لا انا ريبورت انا يمكن راح يكون ريبورت قوي عشان البوينت اهم شيء الريزولت نشوف اذا بس السامبل من وقتي بس السامبل من سامبل من بنكي نشوف استخدام فانا شو يعني basically the point is using this statistics بيطلع ال biggest influence user اكثر واحد interaction highest like post هذا يستعمل هيك نرجع نقول تطبيق برايت كيز اي بارت 2 او 3 كذا بارت انا لازم اصنع وياكم عشان نكمل الشغل بس انا عرفت البروجكت 1 2 3 قلت نفسي مثل بشوف كيف بس شوي هذا الامور فان شاء الله اشوف
هلا اوكي.
احنا سوينا رن اشتغل معاه بس هذا الكود ما جربنا.
اي اوكي هذا مال الميلينج ادرس. To do this, basically you need to add your, you copy it, you need to add your يعني sender email. هذا ملوتكم انتم او ملوت حتى تعرفين. الريسيفر مو مهم منه. بس السندر لازم تعطينا اللوجن والباسورد، لانه لازم يكون authentication. لان انت you're sending it from your client اللي هو من جيميل ولا هوت ميل، فهمت علي؟ whoever receives it اي واحد ممكن ياخذه، فهمت علي؟
لازم احط بعد الباسورد.
الباسورد بس شنو ساعات يعتمد، يعني انت مثلا ممكن تحط الباسورد مالك يشتغل، ساعات راح يقول لك لا ريفيوزد، ليش؟ لانه يبون ابلكيشن باسورد. فهذا طلعينه في تدشين جوجل راح يقول لك شلون طلعينه، وانا وريتكم دشين على السكيورتي تكتبين اب باسورد يو ميك ا نيو سكريبت بيسكلي يدز لك الباسورد هذا 16 كاركتر. تايب سي تشارجر مال شنو؟ هذا شنو؟ صح؟ اي يو اس بي تايب A تو تايب سي. هذا هو تايب A تو تايب سي. اي
اسمه بايثون 3.
اي مو مشكله، شنو المشكله الحين؟
بس كنت على اساس
اي اشتغل، اي الحين مو مشكله. اكزت ذس سوري كنترول دي. اوكي شنو هذا؟ كنترول دي. اوكي ايش صار فوق تحت؟ شنو هذا؟ دقيقة لحظة. تيرمينال صح؟ ايه هذا ايه بايثون
بايثون 3.
اوكي انتو 3. اوكي اي اوكي. ضبط لي واحد ثاني. نيو ويندو بايثون 3 كلاينت. كان شغال. اوكي مو مشكلة. اوكي اوكي اتوقع اقدر ابلش. سو في ناس هنا موجودين بس مو مشكلة. عشان اوكي so I'm just going to show you an example of extending the server we did for the client server back and forth communication بينهم to a multi-threaded server. So now I'll just show you the server. So the server will start, so I'm just call start server. So this will go up here. So I have this global variable called server running. So why I'm doing it this way is because I want a keyword that I can close the server. So this is just a boolean, basically, it can be true or false to indicate that the server is running or not running. Again, exactly the same code as we've seen before. So this is all the same code as we've seen before, right? Nothing new. مفروض. So you create a object, صح? I bind it to a host name and a port number, right? And it's going to be the same host name and port number that I've been using. Then I listen. And by the way, that 5, I don't know if I explained it to you or not, but that 5 indicates the maximum simultaneous, يعني مع بعض, connections. Right? You can have more than one connection, but simultaneously connecting, you can only have 5 maximum. That indicates that 5 is the maximum here. You can put any number you want, honestly, it doesn't matter. Then I have this, basically a list of clients. So since I'm going to have more than one client connected to me, obviously I'm going to have to save the clients that are connected to me, right? If they disconnect, then I can just remove them from the list, either append or remove. صح? كذي. So initially it's going to be an empty list. I have no one connected to me initially, and that's pretty much it. يعني. Right? What do I do? So okay, don't worry about the queue for now. So this is where these two or 4 commands or statements is where I create the thread and start the thread. So there's going to be 2 threads, right? A thread that handles the clients or handles incoming connections from the client, and a thread that waits until the server admin or whoever is controlling the server types shutdown ولا شيء كذي to close the server. Okay? Does that make sense? Right? Does that make sense? منو ما فهمني عشان بس أعرف. So again, so threading, this command just creates a mini process, a mini application, you can think of it, right? Separate from whatever is running here, right? Separate, right? It's concurrent, so the process is concurrent, right? So this target, so again, this just creates a thread, a mini process, a mini application, and I give it the target. So what is a target? A target is basically where it starts. So the thread has to start somewhere, right? It can't start here, right? It has to start somewhere. So usually when we start a thread, we start it at a specific function or method. So the method I wanted to start at in this thread, this accept thread, the name of it, is at the accept clients method, right? So we will see the method up when I scroll up. You'll see the method. I'm doing the same thing again for another method, right? And I'm passing the method name. The thread. The method name would be shutdown server. Again, that's another method that is, I think, up in the top. And I'm also passing some arguments to the thread. So the argument is basically something called the command queue. The command queue is mainly just a queue of commands, right? A list of commands, right? And if all of those commands turned out to be shut down, it will shut down the server. فهمتوني كذي. This is how I'm doing it, right? No, the mouse is stuck. Okay. Again, the mouse is stuck. Okay, there we go. Right. So then I have these 2 statements which are join. So join is again related to threading. So what join means, these 2 statements means that they both wait on each other to finish. So if one of them finish, the other has to finish as well, together. فهمتوني مع بعض. Right? Yeah. And then I just want to go to the accept client, yeah. So this function here, accept client, essentially just creates a socket and using the same socket, for the server, it accepts the client's connection, right? then it basically creates a thread, and the target for it is called handle client. The method is called handle client, and we will see the method soon, right? And the arguments is basically the client socket, the object, and the address of the client, right? As the arguments or parameters for the thread, right? And then I just start that thread and append the client thread into basically a list of client threads, right? And that's basically, I do this every time a new client comes back while the server is running. So while this is true, right? And usually it's by default it's going to be true unless I set it to false. And the only reason I would set it to false is if I write shutdown. You'll see soon, eventually. So handle client. So this is the method that the threads will run once an incoming connection comes to the server from a client. Okay. So basically, again, everything I encapsulated into a while server is running. So while it's true, I did this with a try catch because I want to make sure that if something goes wrong, I can handle it. Right. So it's the same code as you've seen before, by the way. Right. Because this is going to be the client-server application talking to each other. But you can have many clients, one server, right? So basically, I receive a text or a message from the client. Basically, if it's not exit, then I print it, right? Then I send a response from the server, right? And then I wait again for the response from the client. So I keep doing this nonstop, basically, right? Yeah. So this exact code is the one you've seen in the previous example. Same thing, right? So I wait for the client code, a client message. I print it. I create a message. I send to the client, and then I wait for the response. And back and forth, right? But in this case, I can have more than one client, right? Because I have more than one thread running at each client, for each client, right? So how will this look like? I just want to show you how this will look like before I finish, so I'll just show you how it looks like so that you can have an idea. Right? So I'm going to use the same client 2, the same client we've seen before. The client doesn't change. I'm changing only the server. So the server will handle more than one client, right? So again, so far you've seen everything the same, right? So again, the server now got a connection. It waits for the client to send information, right? So the client sends information, مثلا hi. The server receives information, right? The server can send back hi. Actually, wait, yeah, right? Again, one second. Yeah, this is the issue with this code, is that it's not exactly correct. It can hang a bit. Because the entire idea of just having multiple clients talking at the same time to the server can create issues, right? But why am I showing you this is because I want you to use the same code, or you can use the previous code and build it to handle more than one client and then create a group chat application. So instead of having each client talking to the server becomes just like a hub, a switch, right? It takes whatever client sends and then broadcast it, basically send it to every other client except the original client. Does that make sense? Huh? Okay, so let me show the application again this time. I think, let me show you more than one, one second. Okay. One second. Well, I'll explain it soon. لحظة. Oh, sorry. Python. Okay. Okay. Let me open another one to show you. I'll open one more. So, so you see, I got two connections, right? So the server accepts two connections, but different ports, right? So the incoming socket is the same socket, but they go to different ports, okay? The first client is at 51, and the other client is at 61, the port number, the differentiation, right? That's how it differentiates between two applications. So the first client can send something, like hi. I receive it. Second client can send something else. Also, hello. It also receives it, right? So responds back to the other client. Right? So this one receives hello, this one receives world, right? You see what I mean? So the server and client are communicating, but the server is communicating to more than one client. The client is just communicating to one server. So your job is to take the same code. You can take the same code, or you can modify the previous one. It's up to you. I think taking this code might be a bit easier since it already has multi-threading. And instead of sending or talking to the same client from the server's job is one thing only. It takes whatever the client sends, and then takes the information, the message, and then sends it to all the other clients available. It's basically like a broadcast message. فهمتوني? Except the original. So except the one that sent that message. So if you have, let's say, 3 clients, client A, B, C. If client A sends a message like hi, only client A, B, and C should receive it, right? The other clients, basically, right? فهمتوني? So the server, all it does is just it's a server. It just broadcasts the information. That's it. To show you this, let me exit here. And I'll exit here. And then I'll do shutdown here. Okay. Yeah. So I'll send this code to the to this. Okay. Okay. I'll just show you what I meant. 1 second. So, I think I called it TCP group chat. No. Yeah. Okay. So, Python. 1 second. Let me just. Yeah. Okay. Python chat room client. I think this is the one. So the way this works is I have to enter a name. So instead of using the IP address and port number, I'm gonna create a dictionary for the IP address and the name of the client, the alias, basically the name. So the name could be مثلا Ahmad. Okay. So here, basically, the server receives the message that Ahmed has joined the chat, and basically I just send information. For example, here I can send hello. Obviously, there's no other client to receive this, so no one receives this. The server receives that message and then sends it to the client, but there's no other client. Anthony. So let's assume I create another client. So let's create another client like this one here. So Python chat room. Yeah. So this one would be like Ali, for example, right? So here Ali has joined the chat, and everyone receives this message, right? So I could say مثلا hello. Who receives it? Only Ali. Only Ahmed receives it, right? So basically I can create another one, for example. Sarah, مثلا, right? So the server only keeps track of who's joining. That's it, and it just forwards the message to the correct clients. Right? That's it. فهمتوني? So for example, so Sarah can send the message hello, right? And everybody here receives it. So this client received it, which is Ahmed. Sorry, Ali, and this client also received, which is Ahmed. So it just broadcasts the message to all of the other clients, right? So that's what I wanted you guys to do. Does it make sense? Okay. So you can use this code. Yeah, and you can modify the client code, the same client code from before. You can modify it so that it can receive information from the server. I mean, all it does is it just receives the information from the server. That's it. So I think you can actually keep it probably the same. You can change it slightly. Because you want to have an alias, you have to send a name. Create a name for yourself, for the client, and then send that name to the server so that the server can create an alias or a dictionary between the IP address or the port number and the name of the client. فهمتوني? Or lost? Okay, let me show you what I meant. So this is the client. So this is what I meant by. So this is where the client starts, and this is what I meant by creating your own name, and sending that name to the server, right? And again, you want to have. So let me send this one to you. Maybe it's easier like that. I'll just send it. It's not that different from the original code, but you have to create a thread to receive messages from the server, because the server can send messages anytime, right? Even while this client is waiting to send a message to the server, right? So there's going to be two things working at the same time. Anthony. So let me send this to you. Maybe to make it a bit easier, I guess. So that at least you have the client with you, and you can modify the server so that you can, the server can create this dictionary between the client IP address and the client name that's given to you by the client, right? And then when you do broadcast, you just loop on all the clients except the original client, right? You just continue. If you reach the original client in that list, you just continue. You don't send that message. And then you keep sending the same message that client sent to all the other clients. So if you want to see it, I can show it to you so that you don't waste too much time. And I know time is short. So I'll just show you what I meant. So again, this is a list for all the clients. This is a list for the dictionaries. It's a dictionary for the client names that you associate the client address with the name that's given to you by the client, right? Where is it? Yeah. So I have this method called broadcast, right? And if you go up here, broadcast just receives the message and the source client, right? The source client is the one that I received the information from originally, right? So I just loop on the clients, right? And if the client is not the source client, or it's up to you how you want to do it. This is how I did it. You can change how you do it. Honestly, it doesn't matter. I just send that message, right, to the client. There are different clients, so the other clients basically, right? And that's it. I just keep doing. This is the broadcast message. That's it. Simple, very simple. But the thing is, you have to create these two things basically, right? Right. And then whenever I receive accept a new client, I just append it to this list. Right? Just make sure you append it to this list. That's it. بس قاعد ادور yeah, everything else should be the same as the other code. By the way, this is the dictionary, right? So whenever I receive a client, I want to handle a client, I receive the accept message. All I do is I copy the name of the client to the tuple that has the dictionary, basically the key value that has the socket object, right? So the socket object is basically a tuple of things, right? It's like basically the connection object and the address, right? So this is what I'm doing here. And this is done for every client that comes in, right? And then whenever a client is removed, this is what I do. So this is when the client is removed. When the client is closed connection, I remove the client from the list, right? And I just tell the group chat, basically the people broadcast a message that this client was left, essentially, right? Does it make sense? عندكم سؤال؟ لا, more than one client, all the clients. You will send the message to all the clients. No, you will save the client objects, the socket objects for the clients, that when you handle them, you're going to save them in the list. And then whenever you have a new message coming in from a client, you will loop from all the clients and except the original client and send that message to all the clients actually. Yeah, like what I showed you, there's a broadcast method, or you can create a broadcast code. You can. I don't know, I have to look into it. ما أدري. I have to see your code يعني بس يعني it's يعني does it do the same job?
This is the first code that we did.
أي قصدك no. Oh, okay. قصدك the client and server just one client. If you want to do it and see, I don't mind والله عادي. If you think you want to work on that عادي. بعدين بايثون وايد اسهل ترى. It's like English basically. لا بس يعني I'm showing you how to do this. Basically, I'm giving you the code and just extend it, like change it a bit. So all you have to do is you have to basically the same code as from before. Just take it and then not the one I just sent you. The one that has multi-threading. Yeah, the one that had multi-threading. No, the last one I sent you was client code. Don't worry about the client for now. The server has the multi-threading, the one that has multi-threading. Take that, and instead of changing it from multiple clients that you go back and forth, all the server does is just receives the message, and then has a method that has broadcast, like a broadcast method that sends it to all the clients. So same thing. But you can create a dictionary or you don't. كيفكم. If you don't want to create one, عادي. If you want to just have the ID for the client to be the IP address, مو مشكلة. And the port number, the tuple between the IP address and the port number. مو مشكلة. Okay.
بس شنو هذا انتريور؟ لان ترى كنت متاخر.
اي هذا basically is a dictionary that maps your name to the IP address and port number.
يعني شنو؟
يعني تعرف ايش ديكشنري؟ كي فاليو بير
قاموس.
بس اذا كنت محتوى حوار البايثون شنو ديكشنري؟ انت مو ماخذه بايثون قبل؟
لا مو ماخذه بايثون، ماخذه سي بلس بلس وجافا.
انزين ماب في بلس يسمونه ماب. Map, you're mapping the client name with the IP address of the client. أي اسم. مثلا. إنزين. Okay, Hamid connect. Now we can basically this is waiting for Hamid to send a message. So if we send a message, for example, hi, right? But there's no other client to receive it. أنت عندك client ثاني ولا بس هذا؟
لازم كلاينت ثاني شغله.
إيه. And it's more than your
يعني ثلاث.
يعني one server, two clients at least يعني. صارت عندك؟ اوكي. هذه ما اسمع شنو.
ما نفس هذا يعني مثلا هذا الكلاينت قام يقول هاي هني وهذا مثلا.
اي لا انت ما غيرتي اللي مو هذا السيرفر صح؟
هذا اي حطيته بالسيرفر نفسه اي ولا لازم سيرفر بعد ما؟
لا الحين كتبي شيء؟
هني ولا هناك؟
اي مكان مو مشكله. اي شيء اي هذا. هذا لا قول كونكشن فروم هذا وهذا.
اوكي لحظه لازم اعيد افتح يعني افتح
ما اتوقع انت غيرت الكود ولا ما غيرت لانه هو ما راح يشتغل بس راح يكون غلطات هوايه.
يعني انا حطيتهم كلهم شغلت هذا السيرفر الجديد اوكي وشغلت
لا بس السيرفر الجديد هذا سيرفر 3 مو هو الصح.
يعني
لازم تغيرينه.
اشغل هذا؟
لا مو هذا مو مولتي ثريدنج هذا ما يستقبل مور ذان وان كلاينت.
يعني هذا
لا هذا قديم اي هو الثلاثه صح ثلاثه بس لازم تغيرين ثلاثه. بيسكلي شو تسوين؟
شو اسوي؟
تروحين هني مو هني لا سوري اوكي هني هذا you can keep it the same عادي you're accepting threads here.
تمام.
هني so handle instead of doing this يعني من هني ايه من هني لهني
البريك الاخير ما راح تشيله صح؟
لا هذا مو مشكله هذا you don't want to do this. What you want to do is you want to basically whenever you receive something to handle a client, like you receive communication from a client, you receive the message instead of writing a response from the server, you want to broadcast that message. You want to send that message to all the other clients. So what do you need to do this? If I'm the server and I want to send to all the other clients, what do I need? I need the other clients' information, صح? The object of the client. A list that stores the objects of the other clients. So انت هني عندك شيء اصلا اتوقع سوري. لا ما عندك شيء. This is what you have to build. So basically, clients. And then you want, and anytime I accept a new client, here, I add it
Event. Client. Okay.
client socket. So you're going to add this object, the connection object, to the client socket. And what you do here, whenever you receive something here, مثلا, زين, do the broadcast here, مثلا loop on the clients. فأول شيء لحظة، أول شيء decode the message، هذا مو مشكلة. You want to decode the message, sorry.
قلتها برودكاست
إيه.
الكلمة اللي كنت قاعد ادورها.
ايه هني decode the message مو مشكلة. And now you want to do broadcast. ايش تسوي؟ Basically I want you to do this. So basically all clients other than the sending client, the one you received it from, the one who sent this information to you. بس بس إيه. So basically a broadcast message. And I showed you what the code looks like. يعني هني this is what the code looks like, right? So just make sure you have these two at least. Thus, so for client and clients, so just a loop on each client. If the client is not the source client, basically when I say source client, I mean the client that sent me this information. So who calls broadcast? This is the loop that broadcasts this message. So this client socket, I send it to, so I'm comparing that broadcast message. So what you want to do is the same thing. It doesn't have to be like a method like this, but you could use it. هني for client and client. Then you want to loop. Basically, you want to send client dot send. Oh, sorry, أنا سميتها شيء. For clients.
هو انت سميتهم كلاينتس بس فوق لما حطيت
إيه هذا هني clients. إنزين.
اوكي.
Send the message. Dot encode. إنزين.
واحد.
بس مو كلهم.
اول من
if
يسوي
مثلا كذي if client
receive
is equal to client socket هذا client socket then continue مثلا it goes to the next client basically فهمتني؟
بعدين اذا مو equal في لها استثناء ولا ما له داعي؟ لحظة شنو هذه؟ كلاين
هذا this is the original client, the client that sent you this information.
يعني بس الاساس هو اللي بلش يرسل.
اي هو اللي يدزدش الانفورميشن الاساسي. يعني انت هني you're handling the client هني. This is the one.
هذا ما يعتبر واحد. مو كلاين واحد صح؟
هذا client واحد.
كلاين واحد.
اي انت you can have more than one client connected to the server. بس اللي يدزدش المسج واحد. فانت تاخذ المسج من اول واحد وتزينه حق الكل.
تمام.
فهمتي شلون قصدي؟
اي هذا اللي سويته.
اي انت تسوي انت this is the broadcast. This is هذا يسوونه broadcast.
اي برودكاست.
إنزين. And this will work بس طبعا انت want to comment this
تذكرتها بس ناسيتها.
comment this مو مشكلة يدخلين هذا comment this و you can also comment this كذي.
ما بقى شيء من الكود.
لا بس هذا كذي. الحين try it and see if it actually works ولا slowly.
لحظة بس اشغل السيرفر وشغل الشات روم.
ايوه بس لا بس هذا وهذا اي. الله يعافيك ما في مشكلة. فتحي ثلاثة أهم شيء.
ثلاثة ليش؟
لأن تبين كلاينت تو كلاينتس والسيرفر. مو مشكلة كيفك يعني الحين عادي. الحين go to the location. انزين بايثون كتبي تي سيرفر 3 هذا 1 طقي انتر. الحين listening اوكي. الحين نروحي على كلاينتس. اي لا سي دي مرة ثانية سي دي سبيس هذه ايوه. الحين بايثون سميته كنا شات روم كلاينت تاب. طقي تاب اي طقي انتر. الحين كتبي اي شيء اي كتبي اي وانتر اي انتر. انزين بطلي الثالث اي انزين تسوي نفس الشيء نفس هذا بايثون شات روم كلاينت. اي كلاينت ثالث ثاني.
ما في. اوكي.
اي لا مو لا هذا كتبي اكزت.
لازم افتح مرة ثانية بعد؟
لا بس كذي. الحين نسوي كذي. لا هذا اي اوكي. الحين نحطي بي اسمه. الحين شوفي هني مكتوب بي. زين كتبي هاي. لا ما
طلع. يمكن
ليش؟ اوكي فهمت شنو صار. لان هذا وصل لك اكزت من هذاك وهذا طفى وهذا طفى. فشنو لازم نسوي؟ لازم تشبكين مره ثانيه. لا شنو صار؟ ليش كذي؟ اوكي
كلين حلو.
انزين هذا ايه سميناه اوكي.
هذا ايه؟
الحين كتبي هاي.
ضل هاي.
لا ما اي شوفي في مشكله. establish connection was aborted by the software in your host machine. Paste back.
يعني انت الحين تبيني افتح سيرفيس
full message dot encode شنو هذا؟
ما ادري.
send
هذا اللي كتبته مسج دوت انكود
بس ليش انت غيرتيه ولا هو تغير؟
لا ما غيرته فوق
اوكي هذا اوكي 74 اي هني ما غيرت شيء صح؟ نفسه.
احط بعد كوما.
ما في شيء المفروض ما في عادي. ليش عيل سوري لا لحظة. اي امبلا بريك صح. اي مسج lower exit اي بريك. يا
بريك بعدين يطلع وين؟
لا عادي بس ليه مو اني هاف ديبج فهمتني؟
اعيد افتحهم كلهم. هذه ترى ما مشكلة.
لا هو
انا اتوقع اني غلط بهذا فصار في مشكلة بالكل. خلينا نجرب دقيقة.
يس ايش كثر بقى وقت بس عشان نشوف. ربع ساعة ترى. اوكي بس تمام خلصنا هذا اخر شيء. ما عندي شيء ثاني بعدين. Did you remove the client? الحين when you close the connection you have to remove the client. بالليست اللي عندك اياه you have to remove the client. ما ادري if you removed it ولا لا. ما اتوقع راح يشتغل في كم شيء ناقص. ايه
هذا الثاني لا اوكي اي قال الثاني اوكي اشتغل صح.
قلت بيكزت دقيقة. اوكي
في غلط.
لا ما هذه ما في مشكلة.
ما يصير لان هذا سكر.
اي ليش؟ عرفت انا الحين ليش قاعد اقول لك you didn't remove it from the list. هني when you close the connection هني before you close the connection you remove it from the list. Clients
ترى all cap.
clients هذه dot remove client socket كذي. And now I think it shouldn't have a problem. I think. زين. اي شيء يدوي shut down.
shut down يعني سكرته.
ايه. اوكي. clear. شغلي مرة ثانية. هذا بعد. ايه. في مو مشكلة هذا ماكو مشكلة. هاي الحين قاعد يوصل هذا هاي
وهذا بي ولا هاي
مو مشكلة. الحين كتبي اكزت. اي شوفي ما طفى. الحين شوفي عادي قاعد يكمل ما في احد يسمع. فهمتي شنو قصدي؟ لأنه يدد ريموف فيوم
ما ترسل.
اي فيوم حاول السيرفر يدز حق شيء موجود صار في مشكلة بالكونكشن بس.
شكرا.
العفو. في أحد عنده سؤال ولا؟ أوكي ما حد عنده سؤال؟ أنا راح أدز لكم الكود مو مشكلة أنتم شوفوا. أنا أتوقع خلصنا الوقت اللي عندكم سؤال ثاني. هو بس هذا آخر أبليكيشن بغيت أوريكم إياه. في port scanning بس يعني it's not that important I think. We don't need to do this. يعني yeah I think we can stop هني مو مشكلة. I'll send this code on هذا ايش يسمونه Discord.